Salutations, respected respected viewers. I'm George from Ireland. So this video is about President Trump in panic mode. Well, President Trump is obviously deeply perturbed by this impeachment investigation, which got underway, and opinion polls have shown that a narrow majority of Americans are in favor of the impeachment investigation proceedings, something like 51%. Notably, some of those are Republican voters, not many. And if there is evidence found, would you approve of being removed from office? And then it goes up to more like 60%. And again, there's a significant minority of Republican voters on that side. Hello, Anissa Maponga. Sorry, Maponga, yes, who's just sending me salutations. But of course, there is a certain hardcore that will never abandon him. He's got an irreducible group of, say, at least 25% will never abandon him. I'm a swell fella, says Anthony Milbanks. Thank you so much. I'm assuming you're an American. We pronounce it Anthony. I know in the United States it's Anthony. There we go. So Trump is very worried about that, and then he recently addressed a Republican rally. He's been in permanent campaign mode, really, since his inauguration, saying that the impeachment investigation is unconstitutional. Yet again, it's just incredible chutzpah. The Constitution specifically provides for the impeachment procedure. So, yet again, he will tell a bare-faced lie, and a lot of the Republican base will lap it up. Not that many of them are that moronic. They know that impeachment is provided for by the Constitution, and these provisos were invoked against Bill Clinton. They managed to remove him from office, and calling it illegal. What law is it against? Just anything he dislikes, claiming it's illegal, doing things which are flagrantly illegal and getting away with it is campaign finance violations and so on, not paying workers. It's staggering. How does he get away with it? Such brazen illegality and such barefaced lies almost incessantly. You'd think the man would have no credibility left. Now, everybody lies, including myself, but as a rational liar, I try to lie the bare minimum, not very often, only when I'm really in a tight corner, and ideally tell a lie which is close to the truth, so I don't feel that guilty about it, and it's got some sort of credibility. But Trump isn't like that. Will, almost non-stop, tell outright lies which bear no relation to the truth. You'd think that no one would trust him at all, but staggeringly, a significant minority of Americans still trust him. I mean, it's mind-blowing. Anyway, so obviously the impeachment investigation is entirely legal. It's up to the House of Representatives whether they want to do this, and then they're voted by a narrow majority to do it, and eventually a trial in the Senate, as it were. It's not really a judicial process. It is more political. Is it politically motivated? I suppose it is, but these are high crimes and misdemeanors. Well, how bad does the conduct have to be? How illegal does it have to be to mean there's sufficient grounds for removing from office? I suppose that's a political judgment, not a judicial one, since these are politicians who are there, who are as politicians. They're not there as judges in a court of law making this judgment. This is a tricky territory, the interface between politics and law. It's politically motivated. Even if something is politically motivated, if someone did something seriously illegal, surely it's right that the law should take its course. Anyway, Trump is a bit of like the Teflon Don, his fellow New Yorker, John Gotti, that nothing seems to stick to him. He's been this escapologist when it comes to scandal. There are just so many, it's hard to keep track of them. It would seem to me that his strategy for covering up a scandal is by creating a new, even worse scandal. I mean, the whole campaign finance violations, these donations to Stormy Daniels, lying about his affair with her, lying about using David Dennison as an alias, lying about knowing that Michael Cohen paid the money to Stormy Daniels, lying about reimbursing him, just non-stop lies, and about so many things, and the whole Ukraine affair, and was he going to block $400 million of military aid? Yes, well, no reason why he was going to delay it, but he was going to delay it anyway, wanting to lean on the Ukrainians to open an investigation into Hunter Biden's company, the company he was involved with the Ukraine, obviously lying about that whole affair, and Hunter Biden joined this company 2 years after that investigation had begun. It was nothing to do with him personally, and then accusing Joe Biden of trying to strong arm the Ukrainians into closing that investigation. I don't know whether that allegation against the former vice president is true or not. It might be true. I don't know. But even if it's absolutely true, that doesn't excuse President Trump one iota, all right, of trying to abuse diplomacy and military funding for the purpose of finding some dirt on his political opponent. There we are. So Trump seems to be some sort of Houdini when it comes to the truth. There is nothing he can't get himself out of by just more absolutely blatant lying. It's staggering. This level of mendacity doesn't provoke an extremely strong reaction. Politicians shouldn't lie to people. People in positions of public trust shouldn't deceive the public. But he is deceitful every day and doesn't suffer any repercussions from it. You'd think these actions ought to have consequences for it. Trump saying he welcomes the impeachment inquiry. All right, we'll cooperate with it, but won't cooperate it. Why not? These subpoenas, isn't he legally obliged to cooperate with it? I thought that's what a subpoena is. Excuse my ignorance of American law. Maybe I'm wrong. And they've been in that for months, the Trump administration. And so he's panicked. If you welcome it, then help it. Give them all they need, and then you'll be vindicated. Same about like Robert Mueller. If Trump really believed that he was going to be exonerated, then he would have spoken to Robert Mueller under oath. A year ago, saying, "I would love to talk to Mueller." Well, talk to him then. Nothing's holding you back. But he didn't do that. His lawyers persuaded him not to because they knew he would perjure himself because he's such a pathological liar. Will tell a provable lie even when he knows it's a provable lie. Anyway, it's amazing. I don't know how he's managed to raise the bar for lying. And the people who support him are mostly Christian fundamentalists who are meant to be oh so moral and say, yeah, that's it. We've got moral standards. We do the morally right thing, even when it's tough, even when we suffer. Okay, so where are your ethics now? Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbour. And there is us false accusing everyone of all sorts of things, of doing illegal things, of Obama and Hillary Clinton of founding ISIS and stuff like that. That's bearing false witness against your neighbour. So he's broken just about every commandment in the Decalogue. A bit like Trump said, he said he would love to release his tax returns. Well, release them then. Why don't you? And he had no answer for George Stephanopoulos when he put this to him, saying, "You're being a little wise guy. Doesn't matter if you're being a wise guy or not. You're being completely illogical. Release them. You've got no reason not to release them if you wish to." He doesn't release them because presumably they would be profoundly embarrassing. Prove he's not as rich as he said he was, or that there's filthy money in there. Every other presidential candidate for decades has released their tax returns. I know he's not legally required to, but you think he's clearly calculated it's more humiliating for him to publish them than not. And so some of the Republican base won't just join the dots. There must be something deeply shameful in there, which is why he's concealing his financial affairs. So he seems to be petrified of these things. He's always playing these opposites. He would love to do things that he would hate to do, or he welcomes something that he's absolutely frightened of. So it's always this reverse psychology, turning it around. This is the language of the playground. I know you are. You said you are, but what am I? I remember that when I was 5 in an American school, in Saudi Arabia of all places. Someone calls you a whatever, an idiot or stinky or whatever, then simply accuse them of what they just accused you of, even if it's a credible accusation against yourself and it's completely not credible against the other person. So Trump is a man with really illimited self-adoration, self-obsession, and there seems to be no end to his law-breaking. He delights in belittling people. He seems to be a psychological sadist. I don't think he's a physical sadist. I could be wrong, but I do remember he boasted that he would introduce far worse than waterboarding when he became president. Well, that's another electoral pledge he's broken. Well, I'm glad he's not fulfilled that one. He appears to be driven by this compulsive need to lord it over other people, to be domineering. He has such self-love. He's a sociopath. He is stratospherically stuck up and conceited. So he has this sickening sense of entitlement that he can break the law, that nobody can say boo to him, or else they're a bully and a liar and very rude. He can be as rude as everyone else, Has he even really built the wall? No, he hasn't. It's not a wall. It's going to be a barrier. I suppose a beautiful wall. And notice he's not even talking about it these days. So why was that? Build that wall, remember? Now, the thing is that border between the United States and Mexico is something like 2,000 miles. There's already some sort of border barrier of about 700 miles completed under the Obama administration. There have been just a few miles built under Trump. There's not enough money to do it. It would cost something like the order of $20 billion. The appropriated was about $8.5 billion. He'd have to build access roads to some of the most inhospitable and inaccessible places in the United States, deserts and mountains. And that would take years to even build the roads to recruit the workers, a lot of whom would be immigrants, presumably. These are some of the most sparsely populated regions of the United States. Most American workers don't want to work there in sweltering and freezing conditions and source the whatever, everything you need, plan it, but source the concrete and whatever else and build it. You've got to maintain it. So that's that. It's moronic. Part of the border is the Rio Grande River, and you're going to build a wall there. How are you going to do that in the middle of the wall? How to build it on the edge, in which case you're excluding some of the United States. A lot of it's privately owned, so you're going to sequestrate that. I don't know how that works. The legal process, that would take years. There'll be legal challenges and appeals, cost huge amounts of money. So much for the sanctity of private property, by the way. Some of it is state-owned land, and that'll be the federal government taking it. So much for opposing big government, Republicans. Here you are trampling on states' rights, and on and on. So it was a moronic promise that anyone could have told you it was not going to work out. Mexico is not going to pay a peso towards it, as they've said ceaselessly. And he doesn't even repeat that flagrant lie that Mexico is going to pay for it. Why on earth should they pay for it? The United States is not paying for construction projects in Mexico. So there we are. It was just to prey on white anxiety, to appeal to anti-Hispanic prejudice. Now, immigration is an important issue. It's completely acceptable to debate that, say that you want to decrease immigration or increase immigration. You can talk about legal immigration and illegal immigration. These are two separate but related issues, and there are become perfectly respectable reasons to want to reduce immigration, both legal and illegal, and you could do that in a civilized tone without stoking ethnic hostility, without being grossly insulting or fanning the flames of fear. But no, he chose to do it in the crudest and most offensive possible manner, trying to exacerbate interethnic asperities. Anyway, so he delights in screaming orders at people and watching his minions scurry about to work his wicked will. He demands unstinting and blind loyalty from his underlings, but the loyalty is strictly a one-way street. Notice there's no loyalty to them. It's not conditional. If as soon as they are surplus to requirements, they can be thrown to the wolves if it's to advance Donald Trump. It's all about the furtherance of the Donald Trump cult, putting his name on buildings, Trump Tower, Trump Stake, Trump University, which was not a university, another absolutely blatant fraud. Why is he not in prison? It had his name on it. It had no right to call itself a university, and he was stealing money claiming it was a university. If I sell you a piece of paper claiming it's a degree and you honestly believe it's a degree, then that's fraud on my part. I've lied to you to get money out of you. How does he get away with it? I suppose he long ago figured out that rich wasps don't go to prison for offences that ethnic minority people or poor whites would go to prison for. I remember 3 years ago, him constantly inciting violence at his rallies. These physical attacks took place, beat the shit out of them. They should be carried on stretchers, and I'll pay the legal fees seriously. Another promise I'm sure he didn't fulfill, paying anybody's legal fees. And he wasn't arrested, despite none of these attacks went on. People liken him to your PM. What's the validity of the comparison? Trump and Boris Johnson? Well, that's an intriguing question. They're both born in New York City, by the way. Did you know Bojo was born in New York? Both blonde, I suppose, wasps. Both immigrants in a sense. Obviously, Bojo born to British immigrant parents. Trump born to a British immigrant mother, German grandparents. And what else? What was he? Bojo left the United States as an infant. What else? They're both from a family of 4 children, although Bojo's the eldest, actually. Now, there are some great differences between the two blonde beasts, Obviously, Bojo is generously blessed with academic intelligence. He won a King's Scholarship to Eton College, the United Kingdom's most illustrious school, and some of my teachers also taught him, and he was always a fabulous rhetor. He went to Oxford University, Balliol College there, where he read classics, that means Latin and ancient Greek, president of the Oxford Union, a fantastic debater, a journalist, always wanted to go into politics. Trump was obviously very different. He inherited hundreds of millions of dollars. Bojo, although he went to Eton, he wasn't that well off. His dad was a journalist and an MEP. They weren't poor, but they were just about in the upper middle class. And Bojo's not that financially motivated, and doesn't demand his name as on everything. Bit of a showman, yeah, a little bit vain. But both liars, both really driven by getting up the greasy pole, both womanizers. Because Boris Johnson, obviously, he married when he was about 22, divorced very soon, not a nosebleed, I had laryngitis. Bojo, he then married Marina Wheeler, that half Indian barrister, but who had 4 children with her, constantly having affairs with Petronella Wyatt, and I can't remember a few others, Anne McElvoy, and there's this interior designer he had a love child with about 10 years ago. Bojo, despite advocating for the freedom of the press, tried to get an injunction to keep that secret, but the judge threw it out, saying, you know, the the birth of a child is not a secret. It's a matter of public record. You can get anyone's birth certificate. It is entirely acceptable to publish the fact that you sired this child. This little girl is your daughter, and it's relevant to politics. People might want to know you having an extramarital affair. That might influence them to vote against you or not, but the public are entitled to know that. And Bojo, he now has this new girlfriend who's 25 years younger than him, Carrie Simmons. So Bojo's things with things which are racially dubious, but there are quite a few dissimilarities between them. Whereas Trump is irascible, I think increasingly losing his marbles, probably got pre-Alzheimer's. It's a hereditary condition. His father suffered from Alzheimer's. There would be some cognitive decline in a man of 73 years of age, especially considering he doesn't take care of himself. And speed of walking is strongly indicative of mental and physical decline. And look how slowly he walks, has to be supported, can't cope with steps. He exhibits all sorts of symptoms of this. Anyway, what else about Donald John Trump? Yeah, he is a total ingrate. He's not one tittle appreciative of what others do for him. The public, his supporters, these MAGA people, any of his staffers, Republican politicians, is strictly transactional. He really has no political principles. Was a Republican, then a Democrat, then a Republican. Though he now fulminates against Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, he donated to Clinton campaigns. If they're evil, he must be evil too, because he bankrolled this knowing what they were all about. Obviously, it reflects very badly on the Clintons because they knew what a foul fiend Trump was from the late 80s, the notorious Central Park jogger case, where that woman was raped and severely beaten up. It's an absolutely monstrous attack. But various black and Latino boys, and I do mean they were under 18, were arrested and charged with this crime. Anyway, they were all eventually acquitted. And DNA proved that it could not possibly have been them. But Trump took out newspaper adverts saying that they had incredible rights and they shouldn't have so many rights for the accused. Look how he behaves when he's accused. When he's got banged to rights and he's proven guilty, oh no, it's all a lie, it's outrageous, they're so unfair to me. Whining like a little toddler. Oh, you're so mean, you're like Nazis. But when it's an ethnic minority child demanding there's no presumption of innocence and that they should be executed, the death penalty for these boys who were accused of a crime less than murder, really is just sickening. Words fail me. Trump is not in panic mode. He's a Teflon Don. He's impervious to nearly everything, and he will win the next election. The Democrats have so many people, can't get to the end of it. I don't think he'll win the next election. I don't think his chance is that low. What's the chance he'll win the next election? Not tiny, maybe 45%. So unfortunately, there's everything to play for. I've been a day one abominator of his. I absolutely detest it. Supposing he died of a heart attack tonight, I would crack open the champagne. But I recognise there are some people who are moronic, and I use that term advisedly. I'm not just saying because I dislike them. I really mean they are of very low intelligence, and there's some people frankly evil who support him. Are there any good reasons to vote for him? Much though I detest him, okay, the economy's gone reasonably well under him. I'm a very even-handed person. I'll go out of my way to try and find a few things to say he's in favour of him. He's incumbent, yes, that's true. The economy is going all right. He's got a good chance. The Democrats are weak. That's what someone said. I don't like Trump, but these are the facts. Well, I concur. You've got to analyze these things rationally, to set aside emotion and dispassionately assess the situation. What is the evidence? And accept the evidence whether you like it or not. No cognitive dissonance. I have a belief. Some evidence disproves my belief, but I'm so emotionally attached to that belief that I'll simply discard the evidence and claim that it doesn't exist or that it's bogus. No, I believe you must be an adult and simply accept evidence, even if you find it deeply unpalatable. And it's very distasteful for me to accept that Trump has a significant chance of winning the election. You know, peace, incumbency, and prosperity. Does he have peace? Well, not exactly. Fighting in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, hasn't won there, pulling out there. That's a defeat. That could be used against him. He has reneged on his electoral promise to withdraw from those countries. And of course, when he was trying to pull out of Syria and let the Kurds be crushed by the Turkish army, he caved in on that one. So he's a flip flopper. Democrats seem relatively unhinged. I'm centre left, though it's not hard to be alienated by progressives. I don't think the Democrats are unhinged overall. There are some of the social justice warriors, some of the safe space people that I find distasteful. No one thought he'd win in 2016. Everyone thought that Hillary was a shoo-in when she lost. Yes, you're right. I mean, the opinion polls, just about every opinion poll showed her ahead, not by much, you know, by so the polar polls would be like 4% ahead. In fact, she won by 2 percentage points the popular vote. So, you know, that's because it's kind of just at the edge of the margin of error. So the opinion polls, they might be less out. They might be 1% out. They might be bang on. They might be overrate Trump by 1% next time. We don't know. It's unlikely they'll be more wrong than they were last time. And one thing is, an opinion poll is just that. It's an opinion poll. It's not the actual election. And the only way the opinion poll could be absolutely correct is if you ask every single person who's allowed to vote in the United States, and they all tell you the truth, and none of them change their mind between what they tell you and how they actually vote. And everyone who says they're going to vote votes, and everyone who says they're not going to vote doesn't vote. So you can opinion polls cannot be exact, and some people refuse to answer. Some people just can't be reached. So more about Trump. So he has no empathy. The sentiments of others, well, their emotions, they are of not even of the most trifling value to him. He's graceless and has had a scapegrace youth. He really has no sense of humanity. Will he be leaving the White House in handcuffs? I don't think so, unfortunately. I would love to see him banged up in Supermax. So he has no common decency, no common courtesy, grossly and insulting, and also, what's the word, scatologically insulting. Is there any candidate you prefer to replace Trump? Well, just about anyone, even Mike Pence. Trump, he let me see, like that, so insulting to Megyn Kelly when, as a journalist worth her salt, she asked him a decent question. You should put political candidates on the spot. They've got to be asked questions. Trump's always banging on about how tough he is. He throws a tantrum when somebody asks him a worthwhile question. You only just joined the stream. Have you addressed the death of Harry Dunn's, the head of the American diplomat's wife? No, I haven't. So Harry Dunn was this British teenager, and there was a car crash. I think it was last year, and an American diplomat's wife is believed to have been the person responsible for the car crash. She was spoken to by the British police. There's diplomatic immunity. So under the Vienna Convention, all diplomats and their immediate relatives, their spouses or minor children. I think if your children are over 18, I think it doesn't apply to them. They mustn't be arrested. If they are arrested, the police, once you establish the person really has diplomatic immunity, you must release him. Supposing I was arrested and said, I'm a diplomat, unhand me, the police immediately let me go, that would be a lie, and then I get clean away. So the police, they're allowed to hold you until they establish that you really are who you say you are, and then they must let you go. So the thing is, the United States can waive diplomatic immunity, can say, all right, this person, we're withdrawing it, he or she must stand trial. But the whole point is to stop them being held as hostages. But anyway, she said she didn't intend to return to the United States. She subsequently did return to the United States very soon. Was she lying? Maybe. Or did she just change her mind? Maybe. Neither of those is a crime, but that's that. So she can't be extradited unless the United States chooses to withdraw her diplomatic immunity. That's that. Even if she returned to the United Kingdom, she would still have diplomatic immunity and couldn't be arrested. Even in the case of Yvonne Fletcher, this policewoman murdered by people in the Libyan embassy or Libyan People's Bureau way back in 1982, that person could not stand trial because of diplomatic immunity. So Trump, he treats the law as literally irrelevant. He detests it. He seems to delight in breaking it as openly as possible, and then saying things are unconstitutional. But in his language, that just means that he doesn't like them. So Trump demands that he have everything to suit himself, and really he inverts the whole notion of public good, or completely doesn't distinguish in public and private, like typical despots in all sorts of tin pot dictatorships in these benzene republics. Okay, that's what's good for the United States. The taxpayer keep costs down. There's the Trump business empire. Well, I'm going to direct public money into the Trump business empire. Have Mike Pence stay at my hotel in Ireland, even though that's about 150 miles from the capital, and the US ambassador's residence is where American dignitaries always stay. Very secure location in Phoenix Park. I'm going to have the US military go to an airport in the UK, which otherwise would close, just to try and keep it financially viable, because it's important to my golf course, and on and on and on. It's just blatant. And governments of very corrupt countries holding events at Trump Tower because they know Trump will like it, and Trump is like that. If you give me money, then I'll do a sweetheart deal with you, even if it's bad the United States. Doesn't care about the public interest at all. Benefiting the average American, couldn't care less. It's all about him. Disregarding the emoluments clause, not divesting, not there's no firewall in between him and his business. You say that we in Britain are under occupation by America's internationalist regime. No, I wouldn't do. I mean, America's not internationalist. That would mean that you're multilateral and you care about global opinion. You just don't go your own way. So he seems to feel nothing but disdain for the common weal. He divides the words into winners and losers. A loser, of course, is anybody who doesn't support him. Like, remember 3 years ago when some very distinguished Republican politicians excoriated him, he would claim they were a loser, even if they weren't. But even if they were a loser, that would mean that their words were wrong. I mean, Trump is a loser. He's gone bankrupt, is it 4 times? The king of debt, he called himself. Seems one of the king of debt for America. Look at his budget. Behaving like a crackhead with a credit card. I'm going to spend with merry abandon and cut taxes for the super rich, his buddies. So much about draining the swamp. So much about being anti-Wall Street, putting all these Wall Street insiders into his cabinet. So doing precisely the opposite of what he vowed he would do. Anyway, so he adores so-called winners, as in brutes or liberticides, and only insofar as he can use them for his own goals, and those who are not powerful because they obey the law or they're ethical, he has nothing but withering disdain for them. So he seems to think that benefiting the public is something for the weak. No, it's only about himself. And you see how this fellow feeling he has for President Xi and so on, president for life. He naturally gravitates towards tyrants, those who are violently intolerant of free speech. Governments where there are no fair trials, certainly no gun rights. That's who he goes for, not the leaders of free countries, of America's allies, of Canada, France, the United Kingdom, South Korea. No, he despises them because they respect people's rights, because there is limited government. So he all talks about winning, but what a loser he is, having lost billions upon billions of dollars, gone bankrupt so many times. What a moron he is. It was actually very easy with that level of wealth, reaching maturity in the 60s to become richer. But he really managed to snatch bankruptcy from the jaws of fortune by all his boneheaded business ventures, being involved in the casinos, which everybody knows was involved with the mob, and paying off fat Tony Salerno and so on, is really just endless how mobbed up he was. Anyway, so he's always had filthy lucre in huge amounts. So he was born into an exceptionally affluent family, and he feels not the least bit of sympathy for those who are less fortunate themselves. and he exploited his privilege to the fullest extent, and one of his father's tenants was a doctor. He diagnosed Trump with bone spurs, so supposedly this hard man Trump wouldn't have to be doing compulsory military service, could stay out of Vietnam. But funny how these medicals on Trump never found those bone spurs, because they're lifelong, they don't go away. If he had bone spurs as a teenager, he still has them. So I suspect he never had them. Anyway, he seems to like wealth, obviously, but what really makes him tick? And this is, I suppose, the fundamental question to understand anyone's psychology. I suppose he just is elated by lording it over people, by rubbing other people's nose into the dirt. I have to read up more on psychology, what borderline personality disorder this one is, about really wanting to humiliate people. And obviously, it bespeaks a deep-seated sense of inadequacy that he is impelled to do that. So obviously, he's a blowhard and a bully. He really has a volatile temper. He'll just explode at the slightest provocation, and he's just so intolerant. He just can't take it. He doesn't get things all his own way, and that's why he lashes out at anyone who says anything that he finds disobliging, and he delights in seeing other people trembling in fear. He wants to make them cringe, wants to make them whimper, see them hurt. So he just tries to find people who are feebler than him. He's always wanting to degrade people, to be very insulting. How despicable is that? So there's not someone who's comfortable with his own skin. It's not someone who's actually confident would behave like that. But this passes for toughness amongst some people. Some people find this appealing, and they're drawn to this sort of cruelty, this sort of psychological sadism, and he has it in an unsurpassed degree. This level of narcissism, this level of cruelty towards others. So I recognise that the menace that he represents. Dr. John Gartner asserts he's a malignant narcissist and his dementia might account for why he repeats those lies all the time in his ego-boosting rallies. I think some of that's true. Other thing is, these are applause lines. He knows they play well with the people who wear those "Make America Great Again" ball caps. So some people, well, will go for it. The wholesale deglutition of such absolutely obvious lies is one of the things that really flabbergasts me. He's always managed to bamboozle them into persuading them that he's the opposite of what he is, that he's an anti-elitist. The reverse is the case, that he cares about the common man, when the reverse is the case, that he's anti-Wall Street, and obviously that's blatantly untrue. He's just got away with mistruth time and time again, that he's a family man, that he's a sincere Christian, that he's physically brave, that he's morally upstanding, and on and on and on, that he's against immigration, when obviously he's married a couple of immigrants, that he'll bring jobs back when he's had his own merchandise manufactured overseas, and on and on and on. So think what the truth is, say the direct opposite, and quite a few people will believe it. So that climate change is a hoax, that coal is beautiful, that this war is going to be beautiful. Projection, exactly, accusing your foes of your own worst vices. So he craves power, holding on to it, not really to implement certain policies. I don't think he actually cares about immigration one way or the other, but just to exalt himself, to see his name in lights. That's what these buildings were called after himself, to turn himself into a brand. Self-love, okay? So I think he obviously imperils the American Republic. Remember the story of Narcissus, the ancient Greek myth of why it's so dangerous. Someone who adored himself so much was looking into the water, staring at his own likeness, because there were no mirrors in those days, so much that he toppled over, fell in, and drowned. So it's supposed to be a salutary lesson. It's like many of these myths, it's admonitory, as in telling us to beware of the perils posed by excessive self-regard. And then Trump is falling into that pond. There we are. There's my take on Trump on his latest thing. What a flip-flopper is, how weak-willed he is. He'll turn on a dime on the Syria issue. Still hasn't withdrawn from Syria. Yet another campaign pledge broken. How does he get away with it? failing to fulfill so many campaign promises. I know everybody breaks a few, but he's broken so many, including the most iconic one, like the wall. Even the dimmest person knows what a wall is, which is why it played so well. Okay, that's me. Signing off now. Please support me on PayPal, ideally. georgecallahan79@gmail.com. I need donations to keep this going, and possibly on Patreon. I need donations to continue the videos. Trump won the election due to whites being concerned about being a minority. Yes, it's partly that. Some whites are worried about this. Racism, partly economic dislocation, unemployment, falling real terms, salaries, and the cost of healthcare and tertiary education going up. But obviously, he was going to do nothing about that. You want to pledge on Patreon? Oh, thank you so much, Galligator. PayPal's even easier to access. That you should set up rewards. Well, maybe saying what videos you want, or maybe a name check on air. So all these things, anti-environmentalism, anti-intellectualism. He appeals to these things. Chauvinism, and promised to reintroduce torture, anti-Islamic rhetoric, despite the fact that he literally embraced the absolute ruler of the most Islamic extremist country in the world. He adores Mohammed bin Salman, who obviously was bankrolling ISIS in Syria, in Iraq, and everywhere else. So he will promise to do one thing, do the exact opposite. He will hug these people who are America's deadly enemies, and on and on and on. And yet, somehow that doesn't put off some of these Republican voters, saying, but you're part of the problem, or you're helping those who are part of the problem. And obviously Trump is a sworn enemy of the free media, didn't give a damn about the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Okay, he's an American resident, not a US citizen. Khashoggi's children are American citizens. So, but what's the next step if Saudi Arabia can get away with that? The next step is not just to kill the parents of Americans, it's to actually kill Americans. Okay, anyway, I'm signing off now. Thank you so much. Please donate. Ask people to subscribe. I teach people lessons online in history, politics, English literature, English as a foreign language, religious studies, all sorts of subjects, French. I'm a tour guide in London, so book me for a guided tour.